All right, everybody, good afternoon and good morning to everybody, wherever you may be in Green Cloud land. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day. And just to tee it up right here at the beginning, for those of you who have joined us, this is Navigating the Path to Secure. This is part two of an ongoing and fluid conversation that we're going to continue to have with our partners. A couple weeks ago, we had part one of the conversation. So for those of you who are interested, want to take, you want to view that, we're more than happy to send that to you. But just as a couple housekeeping items, I'm going to go over a couple things and I'll introduce those that are on the webinar with me as well today. So at the top of this, at the end of the presentation, there's going to be a survey link. So as I close the webinar down, there'll be a survey link that you can click on. Please take the time to fill that out. We take that seriously. We value your feedback, and we can only get better by your constructive criticism and your feedback. So please do that. Number two, the $15 gift card that will be emailed to you in the next few days. So not right after the presentation, but give it a couple days and you will receive that, as well as the recording will also be emailed out to you. Give that a couple days as well. So that's coming. We do encourage Q&A throughout the conversation as slides progress. So please use the chat function, the Q&A function as well on here, and we will get those hopefully along the way. And if not, we will definitely address those at the very end. At the very end, there will be time for more questions and answers as the conversation evolves. We want to pause at the very end and reserve a couple of minutes for that as well. So for those of you that are here, we're going to kind of go through the next couple slides to kind of bring all of our prospective partners up on not just the Green Cloud product mix and who we are, but more importantly, a little overview about what we talked about in part one. And then we're going to jump into part two. And so part two of the conversation really addresses how does the Green Cloud product suite address your compliance and security needs? So let's just get right to it. So number one, as you can imagine, last time that we got together, when we went over who we are and more importantly, some of the products that we added to the portfolio, it looked like this. So for those of you who do know us, geographically, we are represented in 6 different geographically diverse data centers throughout the United States. We offer infrastructure as a service. We offer both multi-tenant and private host environments. We offer disaster recovery solutions that are intended for you to replicate your environments from a data center to another data center. You can also replicate from your on-premise environments over to any one of our geographically diverse data centers. We also offer backup as a service, which comes with ransomware immutability. We also offer desktops in the cloud, or that are powered by VMware's Horizon product, if you will. As you can see in the middle of the screen, we've partnered with some of the best of breed solution providers in the industry and software providers as well. Now, earlier in the year, as I mentioned in part one of this security conversation, we partnered and acquired Cascade Defense, which was a security operating center, and they are located in the Pacific Northwest. So if you see the map, that is the representation up there. So by way of Green Cloud Defense, we now offer managed firewall, managed email, a whole host of security initiatives, managed SIEM, as well as managed EDR. Now, last time we did start the conversation off by looking at this slide. And this slide shows a lot of different things, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of people. But what I can tell you is this, and this is exactly what we kind of settled on. There's a lot of noise in the security industry right now, and there's a lot of choices to be made. And those choices could impact the roadmap in which you're going to take not only your company down, but your clients down as well, right? So what we are hopeful is that you can see Green Cloud as a partner to help you along the security journey. And it is exactly that. There's a lot of choices to choose from. We want to help provide the most consultative approach to helping you get to the end result. Helping you develop a success story versus just another security sale. So with that being said, I'm going to tee it up to 2 other individuals that I've got on the line with me. Steve Sims, who is our Vice President of Security. He's also our CISO, as well as Justin Fox, Senior Product Director here at GreenCloud, and is also over our systems development efforts. So many of you have interfaced with both of them, especially for you existing partners. But Steve, why don't you take this slide in particular and just walk through the 5 steps in which we discussed in part 1 of the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, JP. You know, the biggest thing, as JP mentioned, is that it's a journey. It's a path, and what we're hoping to do is to kind of clear that up for you folks, so you have a way forward that isn't confusing to navigate how to go down the path of securing your own infrastructure, securing your own capabilities in-house, but B, also becoming that trusted advisor to your customers so that you can speak intelligently, speak confidently to your customers on what security looks like, but also have the ability to, make sure that they have a good path, a good way forward, a good roadmap, if you will, when they're designing and working with you to design their security strategy. So we kind of put this together as part of the last webinar to kind of give, just a 5-step iterative process for you to follow so that, you can have that conversation, as I said, more confidently, because really that's what it comes down to. There, security as an industry is all about trust, right? Just inherently in what it is. And so if you can speak confidently, that builds trust for your customers, that you know what you're doing, you know what you're saying, and you can back up exactly what it is that you're telling them that you will do. So step 1 is really choosing a framework. And the biggest thing here is just setting a baseline, saying, hey, well, I will say this, for some of us, this framework is kind of thrust upon us, right? If we work heavily in healthcare or heavily in retail, we might have to deal with HIPAA. We might have to deal with PCI DSS. We're going to have specific frameworks that we must follow. And so, for some of this is a lot easier if that's kind of dictated to you what you must follow. But for those of us that work in a ton of different industries and with a ton of different types of organizations, choosing a framework can be a little more difficult. So the big thing here is, and kind of what we've chosen to do is go through in part 1 was talk about the CIS top 18 controls that was released in March of this year. Version 8 was released in March of this year. And kind of use that as a baseline, as a way to build that roadmap and continue driving down that road to a secure environment. So the biggest thing there is just starting off, right? Choose your framework, set that baseline of security, set that baseline of compliance that you want to use within your organization, and then follow that through to fruition. The second step is, once I've chosen that framework, I need to self-assess. I need to see where I'm sitting. What's my scorecard look like? If you're like JP on the golf course, and you're looking at that card, you're probably got a couple of strokes less than you probably actually got. But the important thing is to be honest and be true with exactly how you're going to assess your environment, because this is really a reflection of what you're doing, right? And you want to be able to run to step 3, which is develop a plan. So once you do that self-assessment, you can say, all right, I meet all of these controls. I don't meet these few controls. And you can begin to develop a plan and a timeline on how to attack some of those things that you may not actually meet within those controls. Developing a plan is only, that's probably one of the more time-consuming pieces of that, right? Because you got multiple things in play, you got multiple systems to take a look at, you got multiple customers that are being affected by how you implement that plan. So this is a time-consuming planning phase, where then you must go and run into step 4 and implement that plan. This piece is obviously the big piece of it. You want to implement the plan that you talked about, and take the implementation of that and kind of come back and iterate and improve on the process as a whole. In some cases, you're going to find that maybe right up front you chose the wrong framework. Maybe it doesn't fit your environment as well as you might have wanted it to. And you may find that in any of these steps, right? Whether you figure that out in the self-assessment, or you're developing a plan that makes sense to meet those controls, but you may find out that, you know, certain pieces don't work in your organization as a whole. So the big part of this is to take those outcomes of your implementation of your plan and turn it into a kind of an improvement process, where you then come back and self-assess and say, all right, did I meet these objectives appropriately? Did I meet these controls like I said I should? And if not, then I'm going to go ahead and develop a plan, implement that plan, and then you just continue reiterating, continue improving on that process as a whole. So this isn't by any means, you know, this is a super vague representation of what that looks like. It's not a step-by-step procedural type of slide, but it gives you a way to start. And that's the biggest thing. Get started, take a look at yourself maybe up front, and then take a look at your customer environments and say, hey, I just did this in my environment and I know what my plan looks like. Here's what I'm going to do from a product perspective. Here's what I'm going to do from, you know, just improving the services we already offer to you. But why don't we sit down and see how we can run a similar process in your environment, and see how we can, you know, help you meet the goals of your business for 2021, 2022, and moving forward. So it kind of gives you that, you know, sales pitch in a box, where you get to learn more about your customer's environment, learn more about their goals and their business, and turn around and affect change within that organization, making you a trusted advisor because you truly understand their business goals, the risks associated with that, how they're self-assessing, and that kind of thing. So go ahead, JP.
No, I was just going to ask, I mean, you obviously it's circular, right? It's a fluid deal that you have within your own managed services organization, but with your customers. How often would you advocate that someone constantly looks for improvement? I mean, like on any given product, it takes a lot of people time to implement. How often do you typically advise people to assess the strategy?
You know, for those of you that happen to be, you know, HIPAA, PCI required for your environments, you're kind of dictated this regardless. There are requirements within those compliance. There are standards within those compliance requirements that dictate that you have to do this at least annually. Do a self-assessment and really take a look at what your environment looks like. If it's up to me, we internally here at Green Cloud Defense, we're doing this at a minimum quarterly, unless we're releasing new product, unless we're bringing in new hardware, new software, bringing in a new way of doing business. We're constantly doing this process at a minimum on a quarterly basis, if not more than that. So I would say at a minimum, do this. You know, it gives you a great opportunity to go to your customer and say, hey, let's sit down and just do a quarterly business review and understand how your goals, especially if you look at January of 2020 and you have that conversation in early 2020, because I'm going to get a head start into 2020, right? And then March happens. Maybe at the beginning of April, there's a lot different goals. There's a lot different priorities for that customer than there were in January, right? So doing that kind of quarterly helps them to set that bar, helps you to adjust as needed, especially if, you know, if there's things you need to take into account there and move forward. The same goes internally. I'm sure everybody here saw priorities shift and change in the last 18 months. So.
Yeah, and the one thing I just picked up on, I mean, especially for the people that have selling personalities on this call, but for all of us we're hopeful to keep the client's best interest at heart and in top of mind, is listen to your client's goals and objectives, right? The business goals. And if you're doing your due diligence on a quarterly basis, you'll understand that. So you'll know what it takes to continuously look for improvement by way of your client throughout the cycle. And for those who do know me, Steve, just as an FYI, they all know that I'm pretty terrible golf. So scratching off a couple points here and there is that's going to win me any Masters tournaments.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to throw up a polling question here, but as I do this, so I mentioned earlier in the message, you know, Green Cloud, we purchased Cascade, which became Green Cloud Defense, right? But Steve, can you kind of articulate just as an overview as far as what you all brought to the table in terms of experience, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. Our team, you know, myself, I was a co-founder along with someone else. Eric Foster, who's running our SOC, our operations within the SOC now. And you know, ourselves, I have 18 years of experience doing cybersecurity related activities. I've been doing it for a long time. Eric has around about 15, specifically working with Fortinet, who we haven't mentioned this specifically, but we are partnered with Fortinet to offer security services surrounding their products, because we do trust in their products and we do have that expertise. But we've got guys in the SOC that have 7-10 years of experience doing security related functions in a security operations center, in some large healthcare organizations, in large retail organizations. And you know, we've just got a breadth of experience, not just in the Fortinet world, but you know, our guys are all certified, especially in Fortinet, but with all kinds of a myriad of security certifications. And those capabilities are evident as you're working with our team to solve some of these security problems in your environments. But we've got, you know, 18 plus years myself, 15 plus years in Eric, and then a variety of different amounts of experience in our SOC as well.
Yeah, and I'll share these results. It's interesting. I mean, more than half of everybody filled out the question's fairly simple. Do you consider data protection as part of your overall security strategy? And that kind of goes into obviously exactly what we were talking about. Everybody said yes. So congratulations, everybody passed the test. But at the end of the day, you know, data protection has literally been at the helm of GreenCloud's long ball strategy. So from day one in 2011, when we started, 10 years ago, we always had offsite backup as part of our core product set. So if you wanted to offsite backup and protect your client's data, that's always been at the critical core. And we've obviously added and bolstered and matured that product over the years. So with that being said, and this is going to tie back to the whole goal of this, and that's how can GreenCloud's products and services potentially help you adhere to not only security, but compliance. So I'm going to turn it over to both Justin and Steve for this portion of this. So guys, where would you guys like to start? There at the top?
Yeah, so I appreciate that, JP. So, you know, going back to a few slides ago where Steve was talking about that 5-step process, picking a control. If you look at this kind of table we laid out here for you guys, we picked the CIS top 18, like Steve had talked to. There's a number of reasons for that. You know, it's on version 8, it's very mature. It's also a free resource. That was part of part 1. What are some free resources that we can that are out there for you guys? And the CIS website has a whole bunch of great ways and resources to take their top 18 controls and then map them to other frameworks, right? You can see here, we're mapping to CMMC, to CSA Star, to NIST CSF and NIST 800. You know, they can map to other frameworks as well, right? These are just kind of some of the common ones that we've heard about in our conversations with our partners. Each one of these controls does have a number of subpoints. For the sake of this presentation, we didn't drill into each one of the subpoints of say, control 3 for data protection, but so kept it a little bit higher level. But you can see how just about every CIS control that we have there listed is mapping to those other 4, with the exception of you know, NIST 800 with email and you know, data protection around CSA Star. But ultimately, you know that if you meet the data protection for CIS, the CIS control there, you know that you're going to be able to meet those other frameworks as well. So that's a key, and I think a salient point, a salient tool that the CIS organization gives you and us as consumers of that information for free. So if you do choose that control, you know, you don't have to start from scratch if you get maybe pulled into another framework due to an opportunity that's presented to you. You know, if you're in healthcare and you're doing a lot of HIPAA type frameworks, you know, that's great. But now maybe you go into some DoD where you need CMMC, you know, you can see that if you chose CIS controls as your framework, you can see how what you're meeting from that standpoint and how that maps over to that CMMC framework. So I think that's a very important resource. And then you can see our products over to the right with the green headers, right? You know, JP talked about it, backup and DR, right? All of those are meeting different, you know, some of the different controls there, from data protection to data recovery, you know, on through our IaaS, and then obviously into our managed security stack that we have there of those different product sets from, meeting network infrastructure management, network monitoring and defense, around the firewall, endpoint security with our EDR product. So there's a myriad of different ways that our product sets today can help you not only for your organization, but then also help you bring and solve those problems or those challenges, I should say, to your customers. Remember, just because you implement a security product doesn't make you compliant, but it can help you meet that framework of that control, which will then help you as you go through those compliance audits. So that will then, the goal of going through a compliance audit is ultimately to get that certification, right? Or an attestation that says, hey, we can certify or we can attest that, my company meets HIPAA or PCI or CSA STAR, right? So you'll be able to do that. And so this is just kind of a higher level view of the different products and services that GreenCloud has today, and then potentially what control they may meet for some popular frameworks. Steve, you got anything you want to kind of build upon there around the framework?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. The first one is, for those of us in the room that have been doing security a long time, I think the biggest thing that I want to iterate is that compliance doesn't equal security. So as you're going through and you're deploying these controls in your environment, you might meet full compliance with HIPAA, with PCI DSS, which, by the way, are actually built on things like the NIST CSF, the cybersecurity framework that NIST offers. They're based on 800-171 and ISO 27001 and various other frameworks. But just because you meet those compliance requirements doesn't necessarily mean you're secure. So it's a constant, we all know that goal line is changing all the time. Seemingly now every hour, we're hearing about a new 0 day. We're hearing about new breaches. But the thing that you want to keep in mind is just because you meet compliance doesn't necessarily mean you're secure. You want to be constantly trying to iterate and improve on those processes to make your environment as secure as possible. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second one is, again, for those of us that have been in security a long time, never forget to go back to your core tenets. A lot of times we think of backup and disaster recovery and even, geodiverse IaaS as, just operational IT type functions. But if you look at the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the availability piece is the big piece that you're meeting with, the backups and the disaster recovery and the geodiverse IaaS, in that, your ability to continue doing business following an event of any type is specifically targeted under that availability piece of the CIA triad. So it all falls into the security bucket, which means that it all meets, certain levels of controls. With any security product, with any product and service, there's especially when it comes to meeting specific compliance frameworks, it's not always about, if I, let's use managed SIEM as an example. If I do your managed SIEM, will I be NIST 800-171/CMMC compliant? I'm never going to tell you that yes, you will meet that, because there's a lot of pieces to that. There's the whole people, process, and technology piece. That you have to have processes, you have to have policies in place, and you have to show evidence that you are doing the things that you say that you're doing to meet compliance for a lot of these frameworks. So while these products are, we build them specifically to solve issues within compliance as a whole, there's a kind of a co-ownership there in making sure that you are actually meeting those controls and that you are compliant. Hold us accountable, obviously, to the pieces that we control, and we'll try to advise you on the pieces that we don't control necessarily to help you meet those compliance requirements. But the big thing is have a holistic approach, have kind of that defense in depth type of mentality when going into this, and have multiple ways to meet these controls so that you're surely compliant, but not just compliant, you're also secure. Those are really kind of the three biggest things that I would say, Justin.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
that said, Justin, I know that we're running up on the time, yeah, I guess half after the hour, but what questions, I know there's been one to two that come in as of recent. What do you see?
Yeah, so I got a good question, around DFARS, right? Defense Federal Compliance, and whether or not any of our solutions are targeted towards those. Green Cloud is a business. We have not gone through any of the federal compliances like DFARS or FINRA or FedRAMP or any of those. It's possible. I can't answer authoritatively right now because I haven't done those mapping exercises. It's possible, some of our solutions may help meet a particular control within that. But we, as it stands right now, we have not done that type of investigation into whether or not our products will map to something like DFARS. We focus primarily on a lot of the more, I guess, call it common frameworks that you see on the screen today, and some of the audits that we go through as a business, like PCI DSS.
Yeah, if I could just add to that a little bit, we're having those conversations. Myself and our compliance director are having conversations regarding DFARS. The interesting thing, and I mentioned this earlier, but DFARS, CMMC, HIPAA, PCI, they're all based on the same types of frameworks and standards across the board. So with our PCI DSS certification, our ISO 27001, our CSA STAR, et cetera, we're still meeting the same controls that DFARS represents. However, to Justin's point, we need to do a mapping to ensure that the DFARS controls, as they're stated, would allow us to do a letter of attestation for DFARS specifically. Today, that is not the case. We do not have an attestation of compliance for DFARS. However, it is something that we're looking at as part of looking at, the big elephant in the room lately, which is CMMC and NIST 800-171. We're constantly having those conversations. We want to be able to offer those attestations of compliance. And so we're looking at that. But to Justin's point, it's not been a huge focus of Green Cloud to date, but it's something that's changing. And so we're definitely investigating that. I'd love to give you a timeline on that, but JP would kill me if I gave you a timeline on that.
Yeah, no time frames yet, Steve. No time frames yet. But for everybody that did jump on here today, we are at the bottom of the 30 minutes. We do appreciate everybody jumping on, hanging out with us for 30 minutes or so, and be on the lookout for the links containing the recordings, obviously your gift cards. And when I shut this down, just remember that the survey will be here at the end. But thanks so much for making us a part of your day. Have a great day, and look forward to the rest of your week. Take care, everybody.